So our next speaker is, I'll talk while you come and set up, is Catherine Barnes. Catherine is a course coordinator and lecturer at the University of South Australia. Catherine teaches courses in information description and discovery, metadata and information management, project placement. She holds a Bachelor in Information Management and a Master's in IT, and is a graduate diploma in education. So she has both the theoretical and practical dimensions of library education. She's what I find particularly interesting is that she integrates academic theory with practical applications, and she mentions having a special focus on cataloguing guinea pigs, which I think is her way of saying she doesn't teach theory in a vacuum. So beyond her university work, Catherine is deeply engaged in the broader library community, serves on the committee with IFLA, the Dublin Core, Metadata Initiative, and ALIA. So her presentation, Empowering Future Information Professionals, a case study on using Koha and university information management programs, will share how she's using Koha to give students hands-on experience with real library systems.
I'm just going to change this to notes.
Yes. How do we do that? If you figure out how.
That's good.
It's gone the wrong way around. Nope. Yeah, if you've got time, Ian. I think we don't want that one next to the camera. Thank you, Ian. Sorry. Okay, so. Oh, yes. I should know. That's all.
I've got it here now.
Oh, there we go. Sweet. You got your all good?
I'm all good. I'll read from here,
Cool.
thanks. So in the language of the Kaurna people, the traditional owners of the land where I work and play, Ninamani, hello, how are you? Or more accurately translated as, are you good? Are you good? Nice. Thank you. I'm Catherine Barnes, an information management lecturer at University of South Australia, to soon be Adelaide University at the end of the year. We're merging universities. I'm located on the Adelaide Plains, something I became acutely aware of today when I had to walk up to this university up the hills. I'm not used to walking up hills. However, despite my unfamiliarity with the Wellington Hills, I am a former staff member of Victoria University of Wellington, having taught cataloguing here during COVID times via online. The 2.5 hour time difference worked well for us. It's a nice connection to visit this week. Today, we'll be exploring using Koha at the University of South Australia, how to teach and empower our students. But first, why is this a passion for me? This is where I grew up. The dry land where sheep would seek shade under the shade of 1 or 2 trees in the paddock. Most teachers came from the city. They were graduate teachers, many unaware of the harsh land on which they lived, where a drop of sweat would slip to the dry ground and sizzle as it landed. We spent our lunch times and sometimes lesson times catching lizards, locusts, and learning how to avoid swooping magpies. I learnt most things by doing, learning from my mistakes. The smartest person in the town was the local librarian. At the age of 5, I declared I wanted to be a librarian. My dream has come true. Which is essentially my rationale behind integrating real-world systems like Koha into our library information science program. Imagine you're a student stepping into a class where theory leaves the page into real-world applications. That's the power of authentic learning. By using Koha, we bridge that gap between theory and practice. Students don't just learn about cataloguing, they experience it firsthand. This is crucial in that it aligns their education with what the industry truly needs, enhancing their readiness to enter the professional world. I think about it as equipping my students with a toolkit that's both comprehensive and practical. They leave not only with the knowledge, but with the skills that makes them highly adaptable and valuable in their future careers. I learnt cataloguing in the late 90s on a Pentium computer loaded with Windows 3.1 and by entering dot commands into a MS-DOS interface. Who else learnt cataloguing that way? Picture a black screen with green text for those of you young enough not to have used MS-DOS. Every character mattered, and a single error meant starting over. This was the reality of the Australian Bibliographic Network in the early days. My lecturer was very, very strict. I came to cataloguing class one day with wet hair, being caught in a rainstorm, in Adelaide, and she sent me out of the classroom until I had composed myself, looked presentable to come into a cataloguing class. Remembering those tags and subfields and the punctuation was crucial, and it was a rigorous training ground, and she certainly made it so. This image is from the University of Sydney and a little earlier than my university studies. I'm not quite that old. But it is a good example of how we catalogued. This experience shaped my meticulous nature needed in today's library systems. It provided valuable lessons for these modern tools such as Koha. Did anyone else do a cataloguing exam on a piece of paper where you had to... And then you sort of think about how we catalogue now, or even how we catalogued on MS-DOS. It was really that disconnect there. So let's explore why embedding Koha into our curriculum is so beneficial. First, it significantly enhances the metadata literacy. It isn't just a buzzword, it's a crucial skill that allows our students to understand and work with data in ways that are directly applicable to our real-world library systems. And it's not just about learning in a vacuum or writing your tags on a piece of paper. It aligns with industry standards, and the students have those practical skills that are highly valued in the job market. It's all about preparing them for the demands of the profession and ensuring they hit the ground running. So cataloguing lecturers don't always get the best feedback from the students because it's not as fun as reading, kids' books. But we've found making our classes, more practical, more industry focused, we're getting really great feedback. And I don't know the audience here, but one of the student feedback was she knows her shit. So really, I didn't think I would like cataloguing, but now I want to in. So to have this sort of turnaround in the attitude toward cataloguing by actually making it practical and they could see how it applied in the industry has been really quite helpful. These students are hitting the ground running. Finally, Koha provides that bridge between that theoretical knowledge and real-world application. It encourages that hands-on engagement, valuable for information management education. When students can see how that theory translates into practice, it makes their learning far more meaningful. They want in. This approach isn't just about teaching. It's about empowering those students to leave the university industry ready. These students begin by learning original cataloguing using MarcEdit. So we still have what looks like a fairly traditional cataloguing interface there. They work directly with those fields and mark fields, and it helps them understand the structure, the logic, and the bibliographic data, and then they build confidence in recognising how that information is encoded. However, MarcEdit presents information in a highly technical code-based view. I know we've got many coders in the room, but it's not the view that everyone wants. This can make it difficult for students to visualise the record and how it will appear to the end user. For many students, especially those new to cataloguing, this separation between technical record and user-facing display creates a cognitive gap. By moving that same record, which they've created and worked on in MarcEdit, into Koha, the students see how their metadata decisions translate into the public catalogue interface. Elements such as subject headings, uniform titles, notes, edition statements, and responsibility statements immediately influence what the user sees and how they interpret the resource. This is where the learning becomes applied. Students begin to understand that cataloguing is not simply a technical exercise, but a form of information design. This directly shapes access and discovery and user experience. Small metadata choices can have a disproportionate impact. Adding a contents note can improve retrieval. Refining a subject heading can reposition the resource thematically. And correcting a statement of responsibility can clarify authorship for users and staff. Ultimately, Koha enables students to see the full metadata lifecycle: creation, encoding, indexing and display. This holistic visibility supports their development as future professionals who can understand systems, anticipate user needs and make cataloguing decisions on standards-based and user-centred. So let's look more closely at the kinds of learning activities Koha enables. When students engage with Koha, they participate in genuinely practical tasks that mirror real work. They create and edit bibliographic records, experiment with different mark fields and work with authority control in a way that lets them see how changes ripple through the system. They can also run searches, test indexing behaviour and explore how metadata decisions affect retrieval. But what makes these activities powerful is that they build system awareness alongside their metadata skills. They're not in a vacuum. Students start to understand how bibliographic, item and authority decisions produce visible outcomes. It helps them appreciate the logic of integrated library systems rather than seeing cataloguing as an isolated task in an isolated room with someone in a darkened room cataloguing. It's not an isolated task. Most importantly, these activities allow students to apply theory directly. Instead of simply learning rules, they use those rules to solve practical problems, clean up data, correct inconsistencies, and make decisions grounded in user needs. This kind of active, situated learning is what helps them transition from the classroom concepts to professional practice. This is where students really get to see underneath a library system. In Koha, they can open a record, view every tag and subfield, and understand how the pieces fit together. By adjusting the tags directly, they see how small changes influence indexing and the public display. This helps them connect abstract marked rules to real discovery behaviour. Working in Koha also lets them learn through experimentation. They test ideas, spot inconsistencies and develop confidence in reading and editing mark. Overall, this transparency builds strong metadata judgment and prepares them for real cataloguing environments where understanding how systems interpret data is essential. So now let's dive into the concept of systems literacy, crucial for anyone working in library systems such as Koha. Understanding the technical aspects of Koha significantly boosts our database fluency. It's not just about knowing the system, it's about knowing how we can use it effectively. By exploring relational database structures, students gain valuable insights into how bibliographic records, items and borrower data are interconnected. This exploration isn't just theoretical, it provides a practical foundation that supports their future work. Then we focus on metadata interoperability. It might sound complex, and it does to many students coming into our program as a second career. Perhaps they've done a degree, gone away, had a family, come back, or many of our students come from English as a second, third, fourth, fifth or sixth language. So talking about metadata interoperability on day one may just blow their minds. But breaking it down in a system such as this, the complex concept, then looking at these different pieces of data we work in Koha, puts it together seamlessly. By understanding this, students better manage library systems and ensure data consistency. So these skills foster a deeper comprehension of the intricacies of library systems in practice, preparing students for the challenges they'll face in the field of information management. So no libraries do their cataloguing records on paper, and none of us type up catalogue cards anymore. We have that relational database aspects and some of the challenges that can appear in there, and they need to understand how everything works together. And then there's the open source aspect of Koha. It has three key strengths that highlight its value as a teaching tool. First, its transparency is crucial. It reveals the underlying mark structures and database logic, providing students with a unique opportunity to see how library systems operate beneath the surface. Some of our students come from a background in libraries. They're looking to get their professional qualification, and often they've only had access and viewability of their staff view, which means they can't get into the meat of the mark behind it. And sometimes they have been cataloguing, but not in a mark textual environment. They've been using a user interface, which greatly limits their ability to understand the connection between the different fields and why sometimes another field or tag would be a better one to use. But this open source platform also empowers students to actively engage with the system. By exploring and manipulating data within the real library environment, they gain a deeper understanding of metadata and systems fluency. This hands-on challenge is invaluable for preparing them for real-world challenges. And it's really quite interesting. I started teaching the catalogue course, and then we were looking at adding another course to our program, and we suggested maybe doing a course in metadata, looking at Dublin core and a much sort of broader sort of metadata for the Glamour area. And at first we thought, are our students going to be interested? Some of them had come from a traditional working in a library, getting their qualification, or not from a technical background. We started with 12 students, and this year we had to cap because we got to our class size of 50 students, and then it went above 50 students and they had to keep changing to 75 students. And considering our program only has about 200 students, that means that most students are taking elective metadata as well as doing their cataloguing course, which really shows that they've developed an appreciation of the importance. And I think that's through undertaking a introductory cataloguing course first and understanding how things fit together and wanting to get under the hood a bit more. So not only are the students coming out with traditional bibliographic cataloguing skills, but they're also coming out with Dublin core skills and broader metadata skills, which, as we know, with electronic resources and with other repositories in our libraries, the future's looking good. Finally, the Koha's adaptability means students can experiment and learn without the restrictions often found in proprietary systems. This freedom, and I call it freedom, fosters innovation and critical thinking, essential skills for future information professionals. Students are able to extend themselves by exploring other Koha installations and the options that are available. So one of the other aspects is, of course, there were some vendors who were interested in being the cataloguing system we used in our teaching for students to experiment with, but I don't think that was so. Like, as in, I found sort of philosophically using Koha has been the best choice we've made because we have more power over it. We have the ability to, the students can take the knowledge they're developing from Koha and translate it to any system, and they're not bedded to one vendor system, proprietary, that is open to, I guess, the financial windfalls of, I think they wanted to get in so that our students would use their system and then purchase it for their own libraries. So, yeah, very different situation with Koha. The students have loved having their own catalogue. They play and learn with it. Some students are new to libraries, so practice checking books out and operational activities, which is really quite sweet. Others like to see under the hood of the catalogue, and they've the catalogue that they've been using in their current roles, so they get under the hood with this. But yeah, it is quite sweet. Obviously, I got it for the cataloguing course, but the students love, like where we were when we were 5-year-olds and we wanted to be librarians, checking books out, putting overdue fines on people. It's a lot of fun to use it. And then even, acquisitions, let's try that. I'm thinking about maybe using an acquisitions model. So we've actually gone sort of beyond the role that was there. But, we have a lot of fun. The students upload records or create records. Obviously, I catalogue my guinea pigs, and then everyone else catalogues their pets. During COVID, in Sydney, they had lockdowns. South Australia, we didn't. But so one person was sort of locked in their apartment with their family. They didn't have any pets, so she catalogued her son. And her 12-year-old son had under care instructions, showers infrequently. And I know with my guinea pigs, I have to keep sort of changing their size because sometimes when they eat too much, they get a little bit bigger between semesters. So, like her son, each time she went in there, he would grow, another centimetre. It has been quite fun to have the ability to have our own catalogue to play with, like little kids. So we've had some interesting records uploaded. And when the task of the week is to upload the record of their favourite book, it starts a book talk when we have our tutorials and they talk about their favourite book and what they thought of it. And in the comments field, they're asked to add comments about the book or some potential subject headings. And sometimes they're correcting records they've downloaded from Libraries Australia and saying, that's not really the subject of the book. It's actually about this. And it's been, really quite interesting that it's become a communal tool. Sometimes people think about cataloguing as a solo activity, but it's been really great having our Koha here. Just as my early education was one of actions and making mistakes, picking up the wrong lizard or going where the magpies were swooping, our students are empowered to play and make mistakes without affecting a live system. So, I keep saying, this is your time to experiment. You're not going to bring down the National Library of Australia by making changes to these records. And the ancient Chinese quote is, I hear and I forget. I see and I remember. I do and I understand. And I think our use of Koha is a great example of this. They do, and the greater understanding is there. So as educators, I recognise that managing Koha's infrastructure involves more than just technical expertise. It also requires continuous support and a deep understanding of its features. As opposed to sometimes working with a vendor, often a problem is seen by Koha and they send me an email saying, we saw an error, so we're going to upload this and we're going to fix it overnight. Well, thanks, hadn't noticed. But it is really nice having that sort of continuous support. But it does require some technical administration of myself, and I think that's, one of the sort of powers of being, you've got control, but also needing that sort of time to set aside just to tinker with it every now and then. And our students enter the program from a variety of backgrounds. The diversity influences how rapidly they grasp the technical concepts. So it's essential to acknowledge that each student's journey is distinct. Our responsibility is to guide them through their learning process. Like I said, some like to have a play and use a catalogue for the first time. Others like to look under the hood a bit more. I make all of our students administrators on Koha. So they, I think it's called super librarian. It's a really cool label. They love being super librarians. But not everyone does the super librarian level, and that's not required. They're learning how to catalogue, but it does, we all love our little label of super librarian. One of the significant challenges is in striking that right balance between theoretical knowledge and that practical application. Achieving this equilibrium is what prepares these students truly for success. Are there any other educators in the room, LIS educators? I'm going solo a bit here. Hey. So I guess I was just looking at the blending of theory and practice. Your voice is loud enough if you want to share your experience of...
I teach cybersecurity, but there's many of the same kind of issues around trying to blend practice with theory, and because I think I really like your approach, it's fantastic. But it's challenging, and then also assessment and assessment requirements from the university.
Yeah. That's one of the tricky parts about making everyone super librarian is we don't do any assessment tasks in Koha. They undertake tasks, but because they're all looking at each other's records, I can't, in good faith, have them submit an assessment in a shared environment because someone else could also go in and change. I guess that's one of the aspects there. In terms of assessment, they go back to Mark Edit and work on, so they export back to Mark Edit and work in there and can submit the documents. But yeah, it's a work in progress. So the professional implications of integrating Koha into our Library Information Science program is that of that systems literacy I mentioned, which is becoming more of a crucial skill for our graduates. The open source platform not only grounds the students in real world applications, but also cultivates that adaptability as professionals in our dynamic landscape. The integration bridges the gap between theoretical learning and practical skills, and it equips the students with tools they need to thrive in various professional environments. So some of our students might move directly out into a public library. Others move into an environment where they're using their library skills to manage resources, but there isn't always a library as such there. And there's more and more moving into environments where they become information managers, managing resources, than a traditional library environment. So we've had it, it's really been quite useful. Students says I have to set up a resource centre for the Baha'i faith in my city. And so, they're looking at Koha and going, well, I can see, how I might set up and how I might describe things. And they're having a practice while they're in my class. So they're sort of entering stuff in and going, how might I do this when and setting up resources for our resource centre. And I'm enabling them to do as much as they want in the system. And then I blow away the things that I don't want at the end of the semester. I blow away the students, and some of the students have said, could I stay with a login for longer so that I can keep playing throughout, because our course is 12 months full-time or 2 years for the masters, and sometimes when they do it part-time it takes them up to 5 years. They say, could I just keep my login until I finish so I can keep playing with it? And sometimes they come back from their placement and go, I want to give this a go in this system, so I let them stay. So it's been a really great tool. We've moved from that theoretical learning to the practical skills. I try to be really nice to my students when they come in the classroom, even if they've got wet hair. And our students are graduate ready, able to step into the roles, more confident in their abilities, and they've got one library system to put on their resume when they apply for a job, even if they haven't been able to, get a role while they've been studying. So it's given them that advantage. But if we were to sort of see where we're looking, one of the biggest advantages has been employability. Using transparent, open systems strongly supports graduate employability because they can see how the data is structured and managed. These transferable skills gives them confidence to move between systems. They're more adaptable. They learn to recognise how metadata behaves, how relationships between entities function, and how the systems evolve. They're not locked into one system's logic. They understand that broader landscape. And digital literacy. Navigating a live system, students learn data structures, indexing processes, and system interactions. They develop the ability to trace how a marked decision flows through to the user interface. And that is a really powerful tool. It's not in a vacuum. They then get to see, and the users are sometimes their classmates, providing them feedback on a subject heading they gave their favourite novel that they don't agree with sometimes. Sector expectations. The skills directly reflect current expectations in the GLUM sector. Employers are seeking graduates who can work confidently across multiple platforms, diagnose metadata issues and understand relational data, all with a graduate. So they want someone to walk into a role with 10 years experience. You've probably all seen that. Being able to step into a new system quickly and comprehend its structure is a major professional advantage, and that's what's been provided by having a real system in our program. And the cultural benefit of working with open source tools. It embodies collaboration, shared problem solving, collective knowledge building, and students experience a learning environment that they can explore, contribute and learn from others, habits that would support professional growth throughout their careers. So this is how we prepare our next generation of library information specialists to lead, innovate and help build the future of our field. And I must say it's been quite the awesome journey, and I wish it was that way 25 years ago when I undertook my own library studies in that DOS command type environment with the nice... I swear she had a ruler. I'm maybe remembering it wrong after 25 years, but I think she maybe slammed the ruler on the table if we got our punctuation wrong. Yeah. So thank you. Was there any questions?